The brief was to re-provide a space primarily for the Tidemill Academy. They're located across the road. We also wanted to re-provide a library and create something that was a lot more integrated, that met the needs of the community. This building was part of a wider master plan for Deptford, which was about creating better links into and out of Deptford. We have a new railway station that's been built. We have better leisure facilities, so we extended the swimming pool, better car parking facilities, better parks. So this was the big part, which was about providing for the community and providing for all of the new people that would be coming in and out of the area.
This started out with an idea from Lewisham Council about building a new primary school, what's called a two-form entry school for those in the know, and combining it with a public library and a community centre. So that was a pretty exciting start, but in fact shortly after we got involved with it, for various reasons I'll explain, that brief expanded. The first of those reasons is that the site we're on used to be a shopper's car park, and so in order for this project to happen at all, re-provision had to be made for shoppers parking, otherwise the local traders would have been very upset. And so the first project that actually triggered this was something potentially rather boring, which was a new car park. We also brought into the brief housing and studios for local artists.
Right from the start, PTEA were very amenable to the fact that we wanted quite full involvement in the design process. And they suggested that we break into sort of stakeholder groups, teachers, teaching assistants, the admin team, and obviously the children. And we set up representative groups for those stakeholders, and they met with us over a period of several months, and they facilitated the meetings. They tried to work up a profile of our aspirations, our expectations, the non-negotiables, what we had on a wish list, and they put this sort of layer on layer and built up an overall specification for the design. And we really were fully involved in that process.
So we had to reconcile the needs of the school with the library service, with community groups, with the housing provider, and so forth, and with all the other agencies that were involved, including the planning department, and indeed to engage with local people about this very major piece of transformation.
Deptford's got a very rich maritime history. So the concept for this building was about providing a boat, and there's a lot of glazing at the bottom here, so that's sort of like our sea. This ground floor area is very open purposely so that it creates the feeling of flowing, like water and movement. So this building is very, very flexible in that regard. The cladding as well is perforated, so that sort of reflects the sails, and in a different aspect, the nets to sort of catch people, and the idea of catching them and capturing their imaginations and their learning aspirations in this building. It's also gold, and it was purposely bright to provide a centre for Deptford, to provide a beacon so you could see, and sort of there are those metaphors about sort of beacon for learning. And also the glazing provides us a lot of light, so the light floods out, and again that's the idea of the water and flooding and really grasping people and drawing them into the building.
Well, the building is conceived as a new heart for Deptford, and so it's a deliberately look at me building. Most of our work is very quiet and modest and contextual, but here we set out to do something quite different, which is to make a very visible statement, and hence the gold cladding on the Deptford lounge. Now, people have different explanations for what's the meaning and why gold cladding, and Philip has already told you about one of those, which is a rather romantic notion that the design team had related to the maritime history of Deptford, where the parts of the Tudor Navy were constructed here. In fact, our team also designed a mural that you can look at afterwards showing Deptford Creek full of Tudor shipping. So their idea was a sort of golden galleon that had gathered riches of knowledge from around the world and brought it back to Deptford. Other things that mean a lot to us, I think, is the big window behind me on the first floor, which gives onto the hall, the main school hall. And it is a gigantic window. It was quite complicated to design and construct, but very important, both practically and symbolically, in expressing the transparency of the building, that the children can see out, people can see in. It's not a secret, and it's not one of those awful black box halls that are more popular today.
In terms of the outdoor learning and play space, PTA instructed a landscape architect, and they more or less camped out in the school for a week and worked with the school council, who now are actually all at secondary school, several years ago, and they used junk modelling materials and other modelling materials and tried to get the end result was an exhibition of all of their thoughts for the outdoor play space. Strangely enough, with this very challenging apparatus behind me, we were quite anxious about that initially, and we commissioned I think the organisation is the Royal Society for the Prevention of Accidents, and we got a report because we wanted to make sure that it was compliant and children wouldn't be at risk. We also wanted something challenging, but quite incidentally, quite interestingly, it's resulted in less accidents. So we have fewer scrapes and scratches and bumps. We've had a couple of bangs on the head where they haven't ducked quite quick enough as they've gone tearing through the tunnels, but there's definitely been less accidents in those sort of minor first aid.
What we've done here is create spaces that the school use, primarily for school use, and then after the school's finished, they're opened up and they're available to the community. We have a centre management that work with lots of different groups to build on their capacity. So we've had, for example, an Arabic society that come in and they teach on Saturday, primarily teaching Arabic to children between the ages of 4 and 16. And now they've worked with our centre management and they've really grown, so they're providing Spanish and French lessons. They're doing some aerobic classes for a lot of the younger ladies. So that's been a real success story.
My favourite thing about the school is the teachers and sports, because I'm a really good sportsman.
The cage, because the cage gives you more room to do pee and play about more.
I love the tunnel.
I think one of my favourite spaces is the playground ramp, which the children designed themselves, and literally no adult had any input whatsoever. So that's just sort of testament to what children can do if they're given the opportunity and the freedom. So that's really lovely. I'm really happy with the outside sports pitch, but all of the classrooms are fantastic. I think the way that we spent the investment in time that we spent with the architects to look at how we could really maximise that space and make it as large as possible, the issues about storage, the issues about the parallel classrooms being able to be opened up so you could teach larger groups of children, it's been hugely successful. We've had lots of visitors, and we've had lots of visitors from secondary schools who've had great pleasure in building schools through the Building Schools of the Future, and all of them remark about how fortunate we are and how lucky we are and how fabulous the resources. So we're very, very pleased with the result.